I want him to be called Dave. Oh, we said, great idea. And the other characters, he replied, their names are also Dave. Brilliant, we responded. This was our first interaction with a patient undergoing dialysis in acute ward in Hammersmith Hospital, London. For 3 years, we have worked in this ward in person with different groups of patients on a project called Ouchie Street. Ouchie is the name of the ward, and the reason for the full project title derives from the original idea for a soap opera to be created and designed by participants on the open plan ward, which looked like a cul-de-sac reminiscent of small villages and towns which often form the settings for soap operas in the UK. However, upon meeting with patients, it was quickly apparent that they were more interested in a crime drama rather than an episodic soap opera. So we changed the tack and moved the project to be a community filmmaking process to follow the interests of the patients. 3 years on, we are now unable to deliver the project in the same way. However, instead of shutting down opportunities like this project, we have adapted again to change the way the project is structured and delivered to continue to offer this opportunity to patients in the ward. The need to consistently adapt is not something we see as a bump in the road that causes compromises in our projects. It is the heart of our work. And welcome to ensure we are offering responsibly designed, COVID safe, participatory practice to our participants.
In December 2019, I partnered with Jo James, consultant nurse in dementia and delirium, and head of the dementia care team within Imperial College Healthcare NHS Trust, to apply for funding for a student knowledge exchange project to quadruple our established applied theatre projects in acute hospital settings. The projects are designed to support patients living with dementia. In 2020, despite the pandemic, we received funding from Research England and the Office for Students to allow us to deliver this project over a 2-year period. We are currently 6 months into the funding and have delivered 6 projects, including a senior staff panto for Medicine for the Elderly ward staff and patients, bespoke virtual reality experiences for socially isolated patients, interactive storytelling, filmmaking, and songwriting projects co-created with our undergraduate and postgraduate applied theatre students at the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama. All of our projects had to be redesigned to happen over Zoom and embody a pedagogical approach that we call reciprocity, to allow us to learn together, to share, hear, and actively respond to the artistic ideas of patients, and to honour the stories we have the privilege to hear. I've had the honour of working with dementia care team member Victoria Ruddock to co-deliver projects in full PPE in person across 3 hospitals. We would like to share with you what we've learnt and how we've managed to navigate what has at times felt like a myriad of challenges in our path to bring moments of joy to our patients. Before we get to that point, we need to introduce the world we find ourselves within.
To unpack the urgency of these types of creative projects in acute hospital settings, we cannot ignore our current context. We present this talk to you in the midst of another major incident caused by a surge in COVID 19 cases and the third national UK lockdown, and hope all watching are safe and well. That is a sign of people seem to use at present to check in with colleagues, friends and family on emails, in Zoom catch-ups, the start of Microsoft Teams meetings, WhatsApp conversations, and many other digital interactions. But what we are arguably referring to these moments is a question of physical health to check if people have managed to avoid contracting COVID 19. What we are perhaps less well equipped to ask and hear is how people are feeling in relation to their own well being. The fear and anxiety that has been caused because of this worldwide pandemic is profound and has led to increased concerns for the mental health of all citizens, particularly those who are shielding living alone in care homes and hospitals at this point in time.
In 2020, the International Psychogeriatric Association conducted a webinar sharing insights into the impact of anxiety caused by the pandemic on older adults and those living with dementia across the world. The results are harrowing. Professor Diego De Leo, 2020, brought to the attention of the virtual attendees the devastating tragedy of older adults taking their lives as a result of anxiety induced by low survival rates for those aged 70 years plus. Many care homes and hospitals have stopped visitors attending for safety and to prevent further spread of COVID-19, but the implications are less interaction, low mood, depression, less cognitively stimulating activity, and a negative consequence for mental health.
This needs to change. We have responsibility for supporting and upholding quality of life for older adults. Joe James discusses the implications of boredom specifically for older adults living with dementia, noting that it can cause a person to seem withdrawn and confused. It may also lead to agitation, a decline in activities of daily living, and a decline in social functioning. The impact of little interaction and cognitive stimulation is a risk to a person's well being. It is essential to find ways to support people in isolation, in hospital, and experiencing anxiety. This is something the pandemic has certainly increased across all age groups. A recent government research and analysis report entitled Age Spotlight 2020 demonstrates that high level of anxiety, depression, and thoughts of death and self-harm for all age group 18 to 60 years as a result of the first UK lockdown in March 2020. The data shows the impact of the pandemic on mental health. To address this situation, we need to think more creatively about how we can enable interaction within the restrictions we are living in and learn from each other, which is precisely why we are wanted to share an insight into our projects that have been navigating these limits with you.
To begin to unpack our approach, it is important to share with you that we see our patients as artists. We put this into action by honouring their ideas. So the central rule for our project is that the student team who co-deliver by facilitated via Zoom, with Victoria and I supporting the patient in person, must always pay tribute to and integrate every idea offered by patients into their film. This can of course cause contradictions in the storyline and complex character trajectories, which may be difficult to unravel dramaturgically, but we do not see this as a challenge. This is an opportunity to test our creativity to find ways of integrating ideas of our participants into the overall storyline. It is a means of hearing, actively listening, and responding to the artistic ideas of patients through the visible integration of their thoughts into a bespoke film. Additionally, it is a way for us to build a sense of community for people who cannot physically connect, even though they're in the same location, through collaborative storytelling.
We do not want to be extractive in our practice. By this, we mean that we do not simply want to take ideas from participants and intertwine them into a narrative, but instead we want to collaboratively devise, shape, and craft ideas so that participants have agency and autonomy throughout our projects. This is particularly important when others are making decisions for you or on your behalf, or you feel little power over the medical situation you find yourself in. In our current reality of global pandemic, those self-isolating may feel that a lot of their anxiety derives from having little control over their everyday lives, where for safety, interactions are reduced or non-existent, and our usual activities we once took for granted. For example, taking a walk and sitting in the park are no longer possible.
Susan McFadden and John McFadden, 2011, note that there can be a tendency for terms such as cultural change, personhood, and relationality to become mere buzzwords rather than actions that enable active citizenship for older people living with dementia. In light of the restrictions that we're facing in our daily lives, it is important that we find ways to challenge the consequences of social isolation through enabling autonomy. So we don't just use the terms that suggest progress and radical thinking, but actually embody this in our practice with those we work with. Between October and December 2020, Victoria and I collaborated with a group of 3 postgraduate applied theatre students, Molly Southers, Summer Plisco and Lydia Hume, and 2 undergraduate applied theatre students, Charlie Briscombe and Kirsty McMunn, to offer a part Zoom-based version of Ouchie Street for patients. Our emphasis on responding to all suggested ideas was matched with our pedagogical approach to ensure we offered reciprocity in our workshops with patients. This was not just about the strict topic of the project and film development, but it was also about relationship building, to learn from and share our own stories, interests and ideas with those who chose to take part in the project, which was open to all patients on the ward. It is perhaps useful to note that when we were briefed about the context for the Zoom-based version of Ouchie Street, we were informed that the stress and anxiety that was impacting patients from months of shielding had caused a lack of interaction and little communication on the ward. Part of our focus then was to offer points of respite for patients, to start to talk to us about their thoughts away from discussions of COVID and towards creative ideas about what they wanted to see in their film, which this year took the form of a love story between two characters. We were also asked to work with younger patients on the ward who would often sleep through their morning treatments, which then had the consequence of disrupting overall sleep patterns. This is another cause of isolation and a lack of social interaction.
The patients who took part in the project each had strong ideas for the content of the film, and we were particularly intrigued by the different cultural beliefs, religious ideas, and interests that the participants brought to the project. One patient wanted to incorporate angels that could change your fate if they appeared in front of you. Another wanted to create a love story with surprise ending. A third patient longed to see the first snow of the season and offered poetic ideas about the significance of the mountain she had seen in Italy in the winter months that she wanted to be present in the film. A fourth patient wanted to fly and see the world from the air. He also wanted one of the lead characters to be named after his carer, a lovely tribute to the person who supports him on a daily basis. The group collectively agreed on the title Angel of Love for their film and helped to shape the narrative as it developed. No idea was omitted, and all points were recapped, refined, and collaboratively shaped together with patients. From the theme song to the program design, I will share with you an extract from the spoken word evaluation of the project this year's patient artist created. What made you smile? Everything. Love? Something that we all have. Love is blind. Oh my god. Happiness, because sometimes love can end happy. We did have a bit of fun. I will fly someplace in the mountains. When I read the script and heard some ideas of what the movie can be. Beautiful, enjoyable every time. I like talking. I like the company. You should go for it. I want to go to the Holy Land. I become too famous now.
You may feel that this is a frivolous project. After all, it cannot cure COVID, it cannot offer any medical intervention, and it's not quantifiable as an output. But it brought tears to our eyes, and smiles to the faces of those who took part, and requests to send the film to friends, family, and the BBC, from the patients who created something unique, that celebrated individual autonomy and collective creativity at the same time. Perhaps then it is not the economic benefit that counts. Perhaps it is about the heart that's in a project that believes patients are active citizens and offers a route to embody this within its process. Perhaps it is about creating intergenerational connections between older adults and students. Perhaps it is about valuing experiences and seeing a sharing of a story as a privilege to hear. We hope it's all of this, but we're not finished there. We will now extend the project to find further routes to integrate patients safely into the film, and we hope that care homes and those working with older adults and shielding communities will reach out and talk to us. We want to share what we have learnt and exchange knowledge in this extraordinary time. We want to challenge the frightening ageist comments on Twitter that seek to blame vulnerable older adults for national lockdowns by reminding people that all citizens have the right to live and to enjoy life. We want to remind people to think about what is possible rather than seeing challenges as blocks, and we want to thank you for listening. That is the first step towards the route for social change. For now then, stay safe and well, but do not forget to dream about what's possible. See past restrictions and remember, in times of challenge and times of change, we need to think like water to find a way to stand up for, with, and use our imaginations to protect the rights of older adults in our society. No one is expendable. Every life is worth valuing. So use the creative digital tools at your fingertips. Ask for help if you need it, and don't forget to act. Thank you.